trying out a different format this time, complete with a written and recorded script. Maybe I've been watching too much Mitten Squad, if such a thing exists, but I decided I wanted to do a live stream of a challenge run for Drug Dealer Simulator. I was originally going to do the sequel, till I got to the end game, and was conflicted who that would be more boring for. Me, the streamer and gamer, having to sit in a bunker for an hour to crack to keep my labs from getting raided, or you, the viewer, having to watch that. In lieu of either, I decided to revisit a challenge run I had for the first game some time ago. I call it the Party Boy Challenge. Rules are as follows. I am restricted to only selling things I found at raves back in the day. Weed, ecstasy, acid, mushrooms, and cocaine. The last one is in there almost exclusively for story progression purposes, and because when I was still actively in my addiction, it was definitely my favorite adulterant in my ecstasy. I've been in recovery for 6 years now, beginning December of 2018, and I am big proud of that. Feels good. Anyway, as soon as I can grow my own, I have to stop getting it from the cartel. No generic trash, we're connoisseurs here, strain specific only. Any property I designate as a safe house cannot produce any drugs, and any property I deem a grow or a lab can't be used to hide while running from the police. The win criteria is that I construct and fully furnish the first DEA shielded house in the end game before my week's streaming is up. I fail if I get arrested 3 times, as we have a 3-strike policy here in the US, and if I get arrested once during a raid. Only once for a raid because A, those are easy to get away from in this game, and B, there would be enough evidence present at that point to put me away forever. So loss criteria is almost an RP, but here we go anyway. What you've been watching in the background, behind all of this speaking, was my second boot up of this challenge. You must sell the initial package from Eddie, which includes 5 grams of amp. I flushed it the first time, and soft-locked myself within minutes of starting. The second time I disabled it as soon as I could in the computer, rejected any incoming orders for it by sending out Narcotics Anonymous pamphlets, and dug into the game. The meat and potatoes of this game is exactly what you would expect it to be from a game named Drug Dealer Simulator. In the beginning you acquire drugs from your boss in the cartel, Eddie. He fronts you these drugs, meaning he gives them to you before you make payment, and takes payment before the next shipment will be made. We're going to take advantage of this later on. Once you've acquired the packages from their dead drop, you bring them home, break them down into smaller packages to be sold, take customers' orders from the computer, and sell them the drugs they ordered. Incredibly straightforward. To acquire new clients, simply do that thing no drug-using individual has ever in their life experienced, and give drugs to a random stranger on the street. Nothing bad could possibly come from this type of behavior as a criminal. The map is broken down into sectors, and these sectors are then broken down into districts. In order to unlock districts, you have to increase your respect in the districts you control enough to be able to do so. You can get respect the same time you acquire experience points selling drugs, but this can take a long time if you don't have a lot of customers. You're also limited by how many customers you can have by the districts you have unlocked. Now introducing spray paint. You get the ability to tag up a calling card of sorts to self-promote and raise respect of the residents of the vandalized district. These have a small radius defining where the next tag cannot be placed to keep the player from performing the fence post glitch from Fallout 4 and stack tags on top of each other until their respect was maxed. In spite of this, I can burn through 3 or 4 cans of spray paint at 3 tags apiece, is 9 to 12 tags per district depending on the size. We'll be using this to unlock all of Sector A and follow up with unlocking Sector B shortly thereafter. Some of the game's progression is gated behind level progression, some of it is game action, and some of it is both. I paid attention to neither during this run, and decided I would behave as if it were a speedrun in the beginning. I would like to mention here that I am not a speedrunner. I didn't look at a guide. In retrospect, I absolutely could have accomplished all of this faster if I had played differently. But the general idea there was, run through sales and mission objectives as fast as possible, most of which were unlocking sectors, making new friends, learning how to put houses on my monopolies, and turn those houses into homes that would later be drug labs. Speaking of making new friends, towards the end of my very first day streaming, I became well acquainted with the local law enforcement officials when they stopped me for a random search. I couldn't remember whether I had felonies on me or not, and ran, and didn't open the door of my apartment building fast enough, resulting in me also taking a short-range taser to my lower back. Very beginning of the challenge, and I am already on strike 1. I've always said I perform best under pressure. That's usually in a more professionally oriented environment than selling drugs on the streets, however. Day 2 of the challenge proved to be the beginning of the hard part, starting off with pills in hand. When less than an hour into the stream, I unlocked the ability to grow my own. This shouldn't have been damning. I could have planned better, but I immediately set to work establishing my very first do-it-yourself cannabis lab in a warehouse next to my apartment, which Eddie and I agreed is a bit of a shithole, but I was excited to find out had green walls, which was appropriate for a weed grow, I guess. An hour later, I had done one of the key things to this run. I reached level 17, baby, let's go, woo! No, not the level, the access it gave me to unlock the psychedelic distributors. Unlock being the functional term in that last sentence. This whole thing is going to stand as a testament to how much of a potato with hands I actually am, because at this point, it should have taken me hours or even minutes to access these guys just by asking my customers what's up with them before I make the sale. It is super easy for me to just get into a rhythm and write it. Sell drugs, buy seeds, water plants, wait to be able to do the next thing in the process. This game can involve a lot of waiting, but I want to again bring up and mention what you are seeing right now is the wait function built into DDS1, which allows you to advance time at a faster than normal rate based on the comfort level of the building you are waiting in. This function is pivotal to keeping your exposure low, while also keeping the game playable by not making you stand around and wait for a wanted level to wear off. Jesus Christ, GTA gave us stars that took some off out in the world. Why did DDS2 have to take this from us? I said it a few times during the stream. The biggest hurdle during this challenge run, by no small measure, was for sure myself. Guys, I smoke a lot of pot. Like, like a lot. Couple that with ADHD, and you get a recipe for somehow managing to hyperfixate on the aimless wander through the daisies after the butterflies, which in this case was selling drugs and giving out drugs and making money, like as much as possible. Which you would think, that notion right there, the whole get this bag drive, would have been what compelled me to ask my fucking customers about the psychedelic dealers so I could make more money, but no, I just kept making sales and remembering when I'm giving the shit away for free to damn strangers who I couldn't ask, which of course was when I would remember to. By hour 3 of day 2, I was pretty much out of weed to sell, and was waiting on the first crop to come in. That still took another hour and a half of me ignoring customers to sell to others, scrambling to drum up new business in Sector B, which I never really took full advantage of at any point during this run, and culminated in me lapsing slices of time to get the last couple percentage points off as the people who wanted the X to go up also wanted the weed to come back down after the fact. Plan your weekend appropriately, motherfuckers. I also unlocked the power of laundering money, which in this case translates to a 60% loss on my income to be able to spend it on furniture and lab equipment. In other words, getting dragged over the coals by some people in a sealed building. In order to improve that 40% cut, I have to improve the business it gets laundered through, which of course costs my legitimate money. So an $800 upgrade costs me $2,000 in profits. This is why you just own the business you're going to launder through. Fuck me dead. I also had the pleasure of meeting the fattest cat on the block, a man named La Ballena. This man and his drug empire do not care about the rave scene or the party boy lifestyle. All they want is cocaine, the lamest of all the drugs I ever chose to do. Analyze that phrasing carefully. And this asshole tells me they want 30 keys to start. Fortunately, having already had the panic attack of where in the name of God am I going to get that kind of volume on my first playthrough, I knew they would be asking for a measly ballpark 6 ounces. Which was doable. So was putting cocaine on my menu to try and come up with some of the funds I was lacking in. Ever the potato with hands, however, I still told my new contact, Gustavo, that the package was ready, which communicated, I have dropped off your drugs. What I wanted to communicate was, I have your drugs ready for drop-off. Now I look like a fucking idiot in front of the new boss. So much for saving face with the big dogs. I got some people hooked, not on phonics, loaded myself down with tools to do more of the same, and orders from willing victims in my money schemes. And in all of my nighttime shenanigans, and selling expensive drugs to rich, smug assholes, started off day 3 by remembering that I forgot to water the plants, which were now all dead. The investment in seeds lost would have been nothing whatsoever if it had been my third crop and not my second. This hurt not because I lost money on it drying out, though I did lose a few $100. This hurt because of the mountain of fucking orders of weed I was going to have to leave sitting on the table again waiting for the next crop. I am my own worst enemy in video games. This shit simply would not fly. I had people getting hooked on this weed, which in 2024 is more likely than ever before. Weed these days is insane. I kind of love it as much as I worry for beginners. But in the world of Drug Dealer Simulator 1, I was only bottlenecking myself. Again, I rummaged through some trash in hopes of finding valuables thrown out either by inebriants, broken-hearted exes, or other hustlers trying to cover their tracks, depending on what I was finding, which incidentally was mostly trash. I threw up some graffiti to remind people that no, I wasn't gone yet, and keep my customers from seeking greener, not dry, dead brown pastures. I got temporarily frustrated with myself and decided to bang on the door I knew the rest of my drug enterprise was awaiting me behind, only to be told to piss off. Despite setbacks, I was able to get the story pushed forward to Eddie telling me he had bought me my very own starter house in Sector C, complete with sector citizenship paperwork, allowing me to walk through not one, but 2 security checks to get there. I'll level with you. I did not utilize Sector C in this playthrough. I had planned to, but with me constantly getting in my own way, it made it borderline impossible for me to do so. Fortunately for me, I got my potato state under control enough to remember to ask my clients about the other dealers and got the fucking hit. Now I just have to spend the next 3 nights tracking down correspondence between the snitch and their organization and the cops. Shouldn't be too big a deal. Day 4 started out with me setting up my living space and distribution point in Sector B. It had green walls like my grow, and felt lamer than some of the one-room apartments I have stayed in over the years. Truly, I have known hotel rooms with more comfort than this place, and for far more reasonable rates. Plus side to Day 4, I unlocked the other half of my drug menu. It only took breaking into a police station, destroying files, and uploading a computer virus. These are skills every good street dealer should have. That took me a lot more time than it should have, and even longer to tap into, like I should have been handing this stuff out immediately. The downside to Day 4. For real? For real. Yep, a raid on my weed grow. At least I was able to scoop my seeds before the cops came in. I probably had time to pack up some of the leftover flour, but after the 8 seconds till you're fucked by a grenades raids of Drug Dealer Sim 2, I was in the headspace of move or it's game over right here. One of my favorite dialogues in the game, though.
Woo! Fireworks, motherfucker! Yeah! Woohoo! Booyah, bitches! You ain't catching our asses! Okay, let's get the fuck out of here.
That end part does it for me every time. After which, the frustration of having a large portion of my operation being shut down sinks in. Day 4 also yielded the beginning of the end. I was discussing with chat my opinions on the game's creators when I got a sudden reminder as to why the rates on this place were entirely too high. Damn satisfying, I can't get past the loop, but the game feels like it was either made by people who did a ton of drugs. Oh shit! Every place I ever lived with that going on outside was a fraction of what I paid for this hole. I did what I've always done, and chose to ignore the gunfire, in spite of my plug telling me something was up right after one of my fellow dealers was violently murdered. That would be the line for me in real life, but here in the Matrix, I'm not worried about potential death. I'll just respawn. Unlike this coworker, whose apartment was turned into the gates of hell to consume them, or the other two who were pinned down by a street sign and pinned to a police monument. I would like to show you this footage, but I'd also like this video to go unbothered by YouTube as much as possible, which I feel will likely be a stretch already. Suffice it to say, after a call from my boss, telling me I was now almost self-employed, I entered into the final stages of the challenge. I could now set up my very own drug production labs and cut out the middleman of Eddie. I also didn't have to pay him back any of the thousands of dollars I owed him for fronting drugs, and finally made good on my promise to take advantage of him. Money up front, pal, every time. I set out to meet the final salesperson in the game and to gather my mission. Find out who did this and pay them back.
No, you don't! You don't hear anything! I'm not even here, son of a bitch!
Oh god, that is a bush?
Suspect on the run!
Oh god, I'm almost out of stamina.
He's running away!
I'm fucked. That's 2! Apparently, though, before I got started on that, I needed to have one last run-in with the cops and spend another night in jail, bringing my total arrests up to 2. I was on my last strike. Failing this challenge was now more of a real possibility than completing it. At least I got my first lab bot, though. Day 5, I started by replacing the grow I had just lost in a location that was further from my home and had more room to grow pot. I probably could have fit all of it in the warehouse, but the garages work better, and behind them is a great site for outdoor growing, which was definitely coming. With this latest bottleneck and my rep drowning in both sectors A and B as a result, cannabis was going to have to save the day again if I was going to win this challenge. In my loathing of the situation, I became a sewer person, and spent more time than I should have in the tunnels running back and forth between home and Sector B. Again, creating a hurdle for myself by not just keeping my home in Sector B stocked and supplied with drugs. I took some time to motivate my viewers, give free advertising for pirate software on YouTube, and a staunch warning about why to never use drugs. Best summarized as fentanyl exists. Afterwards, I got a second lab set up to produce amphetamine, a drug I wouldn't be selling, but giving away to some asshole who would be willing to help me make some food paste from the Fallout series, using one of the enemy cartel lieutenants and a boat with wings full of cement. I stared at some of the grossest condiments I have ever seen in my virtual life, and went back to scrambling to restore my rep in areas without destroying more brain cells with aerosol. It was becoming painfully obvious to me that I was going to be right on the cusp of completion. I didn't have the customer base to generate the kind of income I needed to buy and build and furnish the DEA shielded house, and I still had to spend time focused on actually completing the campaign. Also wasn't doing myself any favors by scuffing the math for packaging to meet orders. I was beginning to do that a lot at this point in the playthrough. I got tasked with bugging the cell towers around the ghetto to find the cartel lieutenants, and set to work immediately. With my exposition being a constant problem, I could no longer sell drugs during the day if I wanted to keep production flowing. Another raid at this point would spell failure. I planted the final bug, and lapsed time, waiting to be able to progress the story further. I got word that one lieutenant was by two towers, and found out their gang was meeting in the supermarket that had a nod to The Walking Dead on the front door. I went and met the man with a plan to squash a man like a bug in exchange for top quality drugs, bought his cement, paid him his due, gave the signal, and served some asphalt and amphetamine flavored revenge to who I assume killed my coworkers. Untold the voice in my head, sometimes called the narrator, that I would have liked to have been able to see him get squished. But will settle for the lasting bloodstain, body parts, and flying boat that is now grounded forever. My next task was infiltrating their clubhouse for intel on their distribution network. We had to do more damage. Simply killing a high-ranking member will not be enough to shut down the likes of a literal vampire cult. I never experienced this, but I guess if the dope's good enough, cannibalism is back on the table. The business card I found pointed to a funeral home, but being as it was night and I was broke, I took some time to make some sales. The end game was looming, and I was beginning to worry more and more if I would be able to achieve my goal stated some 15 minutes ago in this video. As soon as sales were finished, I went straight to the funeral home, lied about my identity, and found out the enemy cartel was using the graveyard as a drop site for money. I told my contact what I found. He gave me some bombs after deciding I looked like I knew what I was doing with them. I learned which flowers were the identifiers, and raised the dead in a way that DJs and necromancers only dream of achieving. That was the final task. Only one thing left to do now. Report back in and discover that my nemesis, the enemy cartel leader who has been my apparent rival from the beginning of the game, had been living in the apartment directly beneath mine the entire time. Turns out, though, the woman I'd been listening to scream the entire game every morning from underneath me struck a nerve with my rival, and he sent them both to the drug baggie in the sky. I've had some exes lose their shit on me over nothing before, and I know our neighbors heard it, but if I had been leaving piles of trash like this sitting in the corner by the door, and my dismembered victims in the bathtub, making it impossible to not smell like swamp ass 24/7, I think the shouting was pretty justified, and didn't warrant a murder. Eddie, the cartel dealer I robbed for almost $20,000, told me he was ghosting me. I named my cartel something I could remember, called the police on the murder from the site of it, and finished the campaign. I now had the ability to begin building the house and completing the challenge, which was not going to be cheap. I was still, after several upgrades, losing about 40 cents on the dollar laundering my money, and only laundered money could be used to pay for this house. And it was more than just building it. Furniture ain't cheap either. I spent most of the rest of that day making it apparent to myself that I had neither the client base to make the money to complete the challenge, nor did I have the grow volume to move into bulk distribution. So I bought some seeds to start an outdoor grow to complement my indoor one. Outdoor grows are dicey because cops can walk past them and will steal them if they see them. I was fortunate to plant these far enough away from the road that patrols left them be. By day 6 of the stream and challenge, I was getting lost in the sewers, losing my status as a sewer person, but also demonstrating my fatigue. I was getting tired. I had already been a drug dealer, multiple times, both in the Matrix and out of it. The pressure of being arrested was looming over me like a cloud. I had watched several people get hooked on my product. I wanted back out again, so I started plotting my escape. I would continue to sell to my customers until the outdoor crop was done. After that, sell all of my weed to the psychedelics crew for a pittance of what I could have earned selling to customers, but would have taken a lot longer to be able to move. I had already played this game enough time to know the outdoor crop was my only shot. If I was going to complete this challenge in the time I'd given myself, it was this plan or bust. If that didn't generate enough income, nothing was going to. Prayers for rain were helpful, and spared me from having to keep up with watering my outdoor crop as well as my indoor. Thank God for small favors. I was potatoed out enough by this point that I likely would have forgotten on my own, and failed to run, while I scolded my cat for eating plastic. I got most of the house up, and started taking stock of what rooms I would need to furnish and how. I didn't price or budget any of it. I knew at this point of the game I was either going to have it or not, no sense in wasting precious remaining brain power on the trivial. And as soon as that crop hit, it all became trivial. I was done. I started passing the time while it dried, sold it off for a total of $30,000, got startled by a customer on my way to deposit the cash, showing me why I needed out of the game once and for all, burned time like kindling while the cash filtered its way into my account, and by the bare skin of my teeth, beat Drug Dealer Simulator 1 selling a limited drug supply, and finished the first in-game house in a single week of streaming. I really didn't think I was going to make it day 4. Day 5 I was almost convinced, and day 6 it all turned itself around with that single outdoor crop. Once again, marijuana saves the day. I ultimately know I could have performed a whole lot better this run. I was truly my biggest hurdle in that. If I had played a little more appropriately, I could have potentially gotten another end-game house built. I don't think I would have gotten a third, but some extra credit is better than none. At least it was a success and not a fail. Thanks all for watching. Be sure to hammer down that like button if you liked the video, hit the subscribe and follow buttons if you liked the energy, and if you want to get gassed up, come out and see me on twitch.tv/BorrTheWolf. Thank you all again so much for stopping in, and I'll catch you on the next one.